Great. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Microsoft Customer Success Day. It's great to have everybody join me today and also my colleague Iggy as well. So just to introduce myself, my name is Hayley Bass. I work within the business applications team working on Viva Sales and some of the other sales products. Igal, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, Hayley. Hi, everyone. So I'm Iggy Amster. I'm a product manager in the team and happy to be here today with you.
Fantastic. We have a packed agenda. So we're going to really talk to you a little bit about your sales teams, how you can supercharge those sellers with some of our latest and greatest technology. The agenda today is really to talk a little bit about Viva Sales. Some of you may or may not be familiar with it. And so I'm going to cover a little bit on the what and the why and how that product works. We'll then dive into some of the key capabilities. I'm going to show a few demos. And then we're going to go into a bit more of a deep dive into some of the key questions and key areas that often people ask us. So we'll do our best to kind of give you a whistle-stop tour of Viva Sales, and then there's going to be a lively Q&A at the end where we can take some further questions. So just to kick off, I think it's really important for us to really talk about why we built this solution and the problems that we were seeing and the challenges and the potential areas for opportunity for our sellers and the reasons why we think Viva Sales will be really helpful. One thing that we noticed whenever we go and see different customers and we go and talk to different individuals, what's hugely obvious is that sellers often spend their days working in the tools where their customers are. And these typically would be solutions like Outlook or maybe even Teams interacting with individuals in there. And using tools like a CRM application is something that is part of their day, but not necessarily a key part of their day. And so when we were looking at, how can we start to improve productivity for sellers? How can we make their lives easier? We noticed that we really must start to think about how can we bring information, insight to where the seller is working? Where are they sitting? Where are they spending that time? And it really is quite evident when we go and speak to these individuals that there's a disconnection sometimes between where your customer data is held in your CRM system and then the interactions that are happening with that customer through Outlook and Teams. And also, I would say that there is an expectation level with sellers as well. Every time I go and speak to sellers, they're used to using lots of different technologies out there. There's an expectation that these systems need to be easy to use. They need to be something that kind of fits into the daily life of that individual and can work where they work. And I see, often CRM technologies, sales technologies are kind of that Friday afternoon task and not really front and center helping drive their working day. And so this kind of problem statement, this area was really what helped us kind of start to think about how could we reimagine a better experience for our sellers and how could we start to kind of bring better information and insight to their door. And it's really around these three core areas. It's about, look, first and foremost, I talked about this, meeting sellers where they are. How can we start to surface the right information at the right time and connect both the communication data that you're having with that customer, so whether that be email, communication threads, meeting information, or data points that you're capturing through other business sources. How can we start to capture all of that information in one place and also then make sure that the productivity experience is as good as it possibly can be? So that's bringing through your CRM data, your Office, your Teams data, and amalgamating it together. So we also, brought this new product into market. We called it Viva Sales for a particular reason. Most of you may be familiar or may not be familiar with Microsoft Viva as a brand, but it's all about kind of employee experience and productivity and how do we start to make the lives easier for our individuals right the way through from engaging with them, managing their goals, looking at their insights, and particularly looking at their interaction data with your systems. Viva Sales is actually, just another arm of that, but more focused around a specific role. So this is one of the first of our products within the Viva brand, which is really role specific, making sure that sellers really do kind of see the benefits of these applications and helping them drive their working day. So that's kind of the problem space. It's kind of the area that we were trying to address. How can we start to make their life simpler? What I'm going to do is show you a very short video that kind of showcases the end-to-end of Viva Sales. It gives you a very good flavor of how the application works. It will show you how somebody can engage with that application, and it should give you kind of a little bit of a baseline so that we can use that to kind of walk through some of the capabilities in the rest of this presentation. So over to the video.
For sellers, time is money. Relationships are key, yet most sellers only spend a third of their time with customers. It's a real challenge many organizations are striving to resolve. Click the banner in Outlook for easy connection to your company's CRM. And when you use Viva Sales in Outlook, you automatically see contacts known to your business alongside new connections, and you can simply add new or edit existing records directly from the side panel. And these reflect back into CRM in real time, so you can manage contacts and keep your data quality high without needing to switch applications. The insight connected to a contact is available everywhere you interact with them. Save an email or a meeting from Outlook directly into your CRM with a single click, and keep a strong connection with customers with a full picture of the interaction history. When preparing for customer meetings, you can open the customer card and easily review previous meeting summaries instead of searching about for emails or notes. Prepare those proposals faster by sharing relevant information with your colleagues from within Teams. And Viva Sales does not stop there. When you join a customer meeting using Teams, it actually becomes your personal AI assistant, and it generates a summary of your meeting, removing manual note-taking and allowing more time to focus on the customer. In this meeting summary, you can see a list of the attendees and discussion highlights with clear follow-ups. You can share this summary with your manager and deal team to keep everybody updated on progress. Enable it now to help sales teams be more productive without moving outside of the applications they already love.
Okay, what you saw there was really how we can connect both that business data from CRM and that productivity data from email, and connecting that together, and Teams as well. This is about providing that integrated experience. So when I am interacting with an email and I'm replying to that email, I want to be able to see who are the stakeholders. Have we got information on them before? Is there some nuggets of insight that will help me drive my working day? And you saw hopefully from that video, there's that flow of how it shouldn't feel like it's an unnatural experience for that seller. They should be able to kind of bring those two together. As we kind of dive into some of these key capabilities, what I'm going to do is walk you through some of these screens and just kind of point out some of the key points and some of the key areas that we added through. So let's start. You saw in the video, I start my day in Outlook. I look in Outlook. I'm seeing my emails in my inbox. What you see is this new side panel experience on the right-hand side there. And this allows you to kind of see kind of customer information that's been held from your CRM data, maybe some personal notes, and some previous activity history. So this is where I can start to really capture information quickly, as well as be able to read and browse information. The system will look at your email signature from the customer, and it will transfer that information back into Viva Sales. If I'm going to create a new contact record, it will allow me to do that within that space without needing to, again, hop into my CRM application to be able to do that from another place. So this experience is designed so that I can be, a helpful assistant, keeping my data quality high, looking at key information from my contacts, all in that flow of work. And of course, that data is held back into your CRM system. So that information is centrally stored. Everyone can see that information as you share it appropriately. But the user doesn't feel like they're having to switch that context view. So this side panel experience is designed to be very much a non-intrusive, something that's there that is a natural kind of extension to the way that they work. Alongside that, we also have some great functionality in Microsoft Teams. And this allows us to start to look at more than just kind of email communications and connecting up contact records. We can also start to look at how do we really truly monitor and understand the communications that are happening with people through Teams meetings. So if I'm booking a meeting with somebody and I'm inviting them to a call and I've got multiple participants or even single participants, I want to be able to make sure I'm not missing any of those follow-ups. And this is where conversation intelligence really shines. So when I join a Teams meeting that I've got booked, my customer joins, I can record that call. And what it does is it will take a transcription of that call, but it will also start to capture key highlights and key pieces of information. So I'll be able to see a summary of that call. I'll be able to see key actions that were called out that I need to follow up on. I can see key questions that were asked. I can also play back the recording and it will show me the sentiment of that call. So whether we had some challenges on sentiment that I might need to go back on, or whether there's some positive feedback that I might want to showcase to my manager. And so conversation intelligence is really about bringing together that Teams meeting experience and analysis and insight on that call so that I can effectively look at what I need to do next with that customer. And certainly, if anyone has ever done a long conference call with an organization, that's often quite difficult to kind of summarize effectively and bring back into the CRM system. Often people will store the bare minimum. And so where conversation intelligence really helps is it will capture and summarize that for me. I can copy that and put that into my CRM application or have that automatically go through. It also shows some key KPIs, so I can see what my talk to listen ratio is and my key information there. And that's super helpful for me from a coaching perspective as well. So conversation intelligence is part of Viva Sales. So not only do you have kind of the Outlook side where you're looking at your latest contact information and keeping that up to date, looking at the opportunity history, etc. You're also able to go and have a look into Teams, run those calls, see those meeting summaries like you saw in the video. Also, just some key pieces. You can see I talked a little bit about how I can play back that call and I can see those action items, but it's all designed so it's very easy for someone to be able to go back and have a look at and pick up and start working on those follow-ups. There's nothing worse than having a long meeting and then having to go back over and trawl over your notes to find out what you need to do next. So this is to really help make that a little bit easier. So if you're a Microsoft Teams customer, then this is a great addition that you can start to use with Viva Sales. Some other pieces, and again, I think you picked up some of these as part of the video, but just being able to surface CRM insight through that Teams experience is very much part of this as well. So if I'm collaborating with a deal team or if I'm working across different regions, I might want to share information so that everybody's up to speed and everybody's working together on a particular deal or on a particular flow. And so in here, you have the ability to share information and insight through Teams. I can use the message extensions to share key snippets of information. You saw that I could go and search for accounts, contacts, opportunities, and go and share that insight with someone. They could then view that if they've got security access to the record, even launch it. And this would be a great way if I was working with a deal team and I wanted to share insights, then I would use the message extensions to kind of just make sure that that context was clear and that you were both collaborating on that particular area. So Viva Sales, has been out since the end of last year. It's a great solution for being able to kind of track those meetings, be able to keep information up to date, and be able to share and collaborate on data. But we don't just stop there. The solution has a really regular release cycle. We're doing a monthly release cadence with it, and we're adding in new functionality all of the time. And this is stuff that will just, you'll be able to light up and start using within the application. And so the next piece I'm actually going to get Iggy to talk a little bit about is this concept of generative AI and how this is being brought into Viva Sales. And we've got our first scenario experience that I'll talk through in a second. So Iggy, maybe talk us through a little bit on the generative AI approach and your thoughts behind it.
Yeah, thanks, Hayley. So you mentioned it earlier, but I think the real advantage of Viva Sales is connecting the different pieces of data that up until now were sort of in silo, right? The data from the conversation with my customers and the business data or the CRM data. Now AI and generative AI, of course, is magical, right? But AI and generative AI can really be helpful only if it has the right data. And when we have both of those pillars, and way more, but specifically those of those pillars, of data pillars, which is the data that comes from Microsoft 365, specifically Outlook and Teams, and the CRM data, this is exactly the place where the AI and the generative AI can be really helpful, in addition to being magical. In a nutshell, the process of how we are working in the product group to actually come up with the scenarios is, first of all, looking at the problem space and the major jobs to be done that we know sellers are trying to achieve and trying to do, and the pain points that they are struggling with. We are exploring and investigating the exact hats that sellers are usually wearing, whether it's hunting for more opportunities, closing deals, or farming, and we are mapping the horizon of jobs that sellers are trying to do. Now, with the respect of generative AI and GPT in specific, we also took all these jobs and trying to map the one that generative AI, specifically around the capabilities of generation, summarization, and being able to interact with it in a conversational manner. So we map that and overlay that and try to understand which jobs the GPT can help the most in. And then we came up with our extensive backlog that Hayley, you mentioned earlier, that we started delivering. We're going to show you the first feature in a bit, but we have a very, very substantial backlog that we are going to deliver month by month. So, like, very generally, we are talking about how we going to help sellers to generate emails, to summarize a thread, to keep the CRM up to date with those summarization, to summarize meeting, to search the CRM using natural language, and many more scenarios. But that's in a nutshell how we are going to, and how we're already started tackling this exciting world of generative AI and how this helps sellers to be more productive and to reimagine actually seller productivity.
Yeah, I love this area. I think this is where it gets really exciting for a seller. Where can we start to just find new efficiencies in the way that they're working? And no one likes writing anything from scratch. No one's a massive fan of being doing all the manual effort that you have to do in order to actually get in front of a customer and start engaging from a sales perspective. And so I think this area really starts to help make a difference really to the amount of effort and time it takes to do kind of the backwards and forwards and the interactions required in order to kind of progress a deal through to closure. And Iggy's absolutely right. This first scenario I think is fantastic. This is all about AI generated email replies. So this is all around how can we make sure that when somebody replies to an email, rather than writing something from scratch, is there something we can do to help them along the way and get them started? And it's far better, in my mind, as a seller, to be kind of an editor of something than it is to create something from scratch. It usually takes a long time, and you usually have to context switch across different applications in order to be able to get the information you even need to be able to reply effectively. And it's not always in the nature of everyone to be able to write fantastic emails that give kind of a full and complete answer to somebody who's making a request or has an inquiry of some kind. So this first scenario is really about addressing that particular point. How can we make sure that when somebody replies to an email, that we can give them a jumping off point? And you'll see from the video in a second just 3 very short scenarios. And what they'll do is they'll just illustrate for you the power of this GPT technology and how we can bring in the context of CRM data, plus the email thread, the kind of the information that's been held within your office information together to be able to generate some really quite impressive responses that are there as a jumping off point for your seller to then complete and then go and send to the customer. And of course, that information is then fully tracked back into that CRM record, so you've got that audit history. This is all about, upping that quality level of the response, using this ability to kind of make the most of what you've got with your time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the video, and you'll see these 3 just kind of different examples of how this email reply functionality can be used.
Kelly is a busy relationship seller working with key accounts every day. Naturally, when she receives an email from one of her clients asking for a proposal, she jumps into action. In order to craft a well-written response, here is an example of what she would typically do. Kelly loads the CRM system, navigates to the opportunity, and then reviews the product information and notes. She would then spend at least 15 minutes compiling a personalized response, including the right data points from CRM. However, there is a more efficient way to carry out this action. Let's go back to the email. Kelly can see a Viva Sales notification banner at the top offering help to craft a response. As she launches, she can see the new GPT experience, and Kelly can see a selection of preset options to help her respond. As she selects Make a Proposal, Azure OpenAI automatically generates a suggested reply enriched with the content from the CRM data. You can see there is a mention of the product, number of units, and pricing, all seamlessly taken from the opportunity data and combined with the email context. With the content complete, she can simply copy the message to her email, make any minor adjustments to suit her style, and send. Not only is this far more efficient than crafting a message from scratch, but Viva Sales can instantly store and update the insight back into CRM. With the contact records linked to Dynamics 365 Sales, we can ensure better data capture, improved data hygiene, and build trust with the value of the information. As we go back to Kelly's inbox, we can see she has another email from a customer requesting an adjustment in delivery dates to meet a deadline. Kelly goes through the same process, but this time she wishes to suggest her own reply. As she selects Suggest Your Own, she types key data points to be included in the message. The delivery dates can be improved for a unit limit, and once again, a suggested reply is generated and Kelly can add it back into her email. Let's look at another example. We can see a request with multiple questions from a prospect. As a response is generated, it takes the context from the original message and creates a personal response to help build a rapport with a prospect. Crafting this kind of email would have taken Kelly much longer to do at this quality level. She can simply take the generated suggestion and review for any adjustments. Now, Kelly can focus on what she does best and move on to closing her next deal.
Okay, hopefully you saw that video and I'm pretty excited by those 3 scenarios. I just think it's amazing how one simple button can just generate such a detailed response that I can then edit and update. And I love the fact that it brings in that information from the CRM data as well, which I can then start to not have to context switch between those apps in order to get that insight. So exciting stuff on that side. And what I would like to do is maybe kind of switch focus and just talk a little bit more in depth around some of the kind of the technologies that we're using under the hood, and just some of those the areas of where we're bringing that data together. And Iggy, I think you're going to talk a little bit about some of the architecture pieces, and then I'll talk about some of the customization elements.
Yes, thanks, Hayley. So we're going to talk a little bit, as Hayley mentioned, a bit under the hood, like how things are being built. We will try not to bore you too much and to be brief, and of course to leave room for Q&A, like that you can ask us more about it. Okay, so about Viva Sales. So it's important for us to show you and to emphasize that Viva Sales is actually built in layers. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the data layers and how Viva Sales is actually connecting, right, the data from Office and from the CRM, right? So CRM, it works, natively with Dynamics, of course, but also with Salesforce, and it is all being built on top of Dataverse. So Dataverse is the center. It's actually it's the center, not only because it's an enterprise grade level of data storage, but it's also something that helps us to, and we will talk about it later on in a second, helps us to empower our ecosystem and partnerships. We are also using, of course, leveraging the fact that we are one Microsoft and using the Microsoft Azure as the major part of the service layer. Our service data, the Viva Sales service, is using a lot Microsoft Azure Cognitive Services, for example. Part of it is also the Azure OpenAI service that we will talk about in a second. And our client application layer is mainly around, as you could see in the videos, is around like experiences within Outlook, experiences within Teams, and of course getting the data from the entire ecosystem of Microsoft 365. We also have like a pretty dominant, and it's getting more and more, sophisticated and elaborated, as Hayley will talk about in a second, about the app management, because we are aware that specifically in the CRM space, customers are not using the vanilla schema of entities and fields. They're customizing it a lot, and we're providing some levels of customization using the customization experiences and other experiences that we have in Microsoft. Yeah, about data. So we talked a little bit about it. We can get a little bit more, a little bit deeper right now. So with regards to the data points that we are, collecting together. So we talked about the two main pillars, right? The pillar of the CRM data and the pillar of the M365 data. So about the CRM, so as I mentioned earlier, we are integrating with both Salesforce, either Salesforce or Dynamics, depending which CRM system your organization is using. And at first, we are using the out-of-the-box, most commonly used entities and fields, but we have some customization capabilities in place, and we're gonna elaborate and make it better and better over time, depending on how we see customers using the product. It's important to say, okay, that as I mentioned also earlier, that we're using Dataverse as the center of data and where we are holding data. For Dynamics, for sure, Dynamics customers already using the data, so we're using the same Dataverse instance. For Salesforce users, we have like a dedicated Dataverse instance. We're not copying any data, we're just keeping the insights there and some pointers. So we are doing everything in real time, with specific to how we are querying data from Salesforce and writing back. With regards to M365 data, so again, as you could see from the examples, these are mainly, at least for now, around emails and meetings artifacts like recording, transcript, etc. with this data, we are actually producing our AI, and together with the CRM data, this is really where the magic happens and where the real helpfulness of the AI comes to life. With regards to Viva Sales data, so again, as I mentioned several times in the past, we are storing everything in Dataverse. Dataverse is the center. And this is where also our insights, or the insights that Viva Sales collects, are being stored. And this is what empowers both customers and partners to even build on top of it, and even create even better value. Okay, and we will again elaborate a little bit more about it later on with an example of our first partnership with Seismic. With regards to how our AI stack, or specifically the generative AI stack, works, so basically in the heart of it, we're using GPT. You are all familiar with GPT now for the last couple or 3 months with ChatGPT. And many times we're asked, what is the difference between that and what we're using? So basically, it's the same model. But we're using it through Azure OpenAI services, which is, you can think about it as the enterprise grade of GPT model. This is how enterprise would like to use actually GPT, and it has a lot of benefits from security to compliance, reliability, responsible AI, and of course as an holistic solution. Viva Sales is using already a lot of Azure Cognitive Service, cognitive services solutions, and this is like another one. It's very, very easy for us from the product perspective to add it into the mix. It's also important to note that GPT, of course, is a pre-trained model. GPT is not going to be trained with customer data, and so the privacy is going to be kept. But in addition to that, okay, so I just talked about the heart of the GPT stack, or a generative AI stack. We're also doing a lot of efforts in our product and for each scenario, both in pre and post processing. So the entire idea behind GPT is how we are providing the best prompts to get the right results. And to get the right prompts, it's a lot about, since we're gathering a lot of data points, we need to get them to make sure that we are getting the right data points to curate them, because the GPT have some limitation of the size of the prompts, and we also want to make sure that it's as accurate as possible, so the results will be as accurate as possible. And in the post-processing, we are doing a lot of work in order to make sure that there are not what we call GPT hallucinations, meaning that nothing was invented during this process. GPT is very creative, but we would like to keep it in the right track, on the right track. Sorry, as well as we're providing like a very elaborated human in the loop type of experiences to make sure that the seller, in our case, has all of the levers and the controls in the UI to do the right fine tuning in order for the result to be as accurate as possible.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's creative, but within certain parameters, I think is the important message there for sure. And I think the ideas and the things that we can do with that technology is going to be amazing. So yeah, some of these scenarios I'm really looking forward to getting in front of you guys as customers to try it and give us your feedback. So I'm going to talk a little bit as well about the extensibility of the product. We often get questions like, oh, I need to add in my own custom field into that side panel experience, or I need to be able to make some changes because my deployment of Dynamics or my deployment of Salesforce has some changes there that we need to be aware of. And so I just wanted to kind of make sure that this audience is fully aware we have a whole kind of extensibility spectrum that we're driving around the product. And like I say, that monthly release cycle as well. And first and foremost, we really want to make sure that the product is very easy to get started. So we're adding some configuration options that make kind of some of those simple changes, like adding new fields, really easy to do, low code, no code, super simple. Enrichment is that kind of that low code experience. So I want to be able to kind of change that look and feel a little bit more, maybe make some of those changes to the entities and add new sections and tabs in there. And so that's that enrichment area. And then the extension is really doing much more to that. So similar to what we're doing with some of our partnerships that Iggy's going to talk about in a second, but being able to extend and add whole new component parts or connect it to other CRM systems. And that's where that extension capability will come in. So we have a roadmap that goes across that whole spectrum. We're starting with the configure area, which is make it so it's very easy to get started. And you can still kind of tailor it to the needs of your business. We want to take that feedback and then we'll add in some of these other capabilities as well. And you can see a bit of a timeline of those through here. And I guess that links I kind of show you kind of the admin side of things. There's an admin area, an admin app area in Teams, which is where you can start to decide on what kind of fields you want to enable into these experiences. And this will be kind of that home space where we'll add in the areas of new functionality that you can start to configure and customize. But ultimately, what you're changing is really these three experiences. You're changing that side panel within the Outlook pane, the Teams meeting pane itself when you're doing conversation intelligence, and then of course those message extensions or the adaptive card experience that you'll see within Teams. And so we will see those spaces as we want to, keep them light, keep them something that's very easy for a seller to use. So we're going to provide a bit of guidance as well, because sometimes just because you can doesn't always mean you should. I think that's a rule for anybody that's deploying systems. But for sure, we want to make sure that you still get a little bit of that flexibility so you can add these things in. So just heads up that that's coming. And maybe, Iggy, do you want to talk a little bit about, just one of our ISV partnerships that we've got, that are, building and planning to kind of leverage this functionality with Viva Sales?
Yes, sure. So yeah, that's the other side of the spectrum. And again, it's just the first thing that we're doing, and we're going to go both deeper and broader as well. So in this case, we are partnering with Seismic, that I believe most of you are familiar with. Seismic provides like sales enablement solution for customers, and often they can provide a lot of helpful information and data to help sellers to achieve more. Okay, so in this case, in this specific case, this is only the first integration point that we started with, is the same conversation intelligence post-meeting page that Hayley presented a few minutes back. And if you remember, we talked about the highlight sections, okay, in which Viva Sales is summarizing, key highlights that happened during this meeting, as well as action items. And in this point, Seismic actually, as our partner, enabled to enrich that data points with even more valuable data. And in this case, Seismic actually offers the seller to read more about a specific product or offering that was mentioning during the call, and so on and so forth. And this is everything is happening on real time, exactly when the meeting summary is getting generated. And again, as I mentioned, this is only the beginning. You can think about, the imagination is our limit here, right? Limit here. You can think about each and every scenario that we presented, and each of the scenarios that we haven't presented yet because we are building it. And you can think about the extensibility of both partners and specific data that comes from customers that can raise the level of effectiveness even higher from what you have seen up until
I hope by now everyone's getting excited about, what Viva Sales has to offer. I've mentioned this already, but we do have such a regular release cycle for this. This doesn't follow like the usual path for some of the Dynamics products out there. We have a monthly release cadence that we're working towards. So we're adding new functionality. We're being very agile about taking the feedback and making sure that we reflect that back into the product, so that sellers start to see that incremental value as they go through. I guess I'm also going to talk a little bit about the commercials, because I'm sure that there'll be many people on this call going, well, how much is it? What do I need to do to kind of get started? Here's some things I just want to cover with this group. If you're a Dynamics customer, so if you have Dynamics 365 Sales Enterprise or Sales Premium or the LinkedIn Sales Navigator MRSS solution or CE, then Viva Sales is included within that package, no additional cost. So if you are a Dynamics customer, then this is just a feature extension, right? These are just more capabilities that you get as part of your purchase of the Dynamics license. And it's really there to help bridge that gap between your sellers and your CRM system to help drive up adoption. So for me, any Dynamics customers on this call should be switching this on. I mean, there should be no reason why you wouldn't want to switch this one on. And you can, decide, what functionality people are going to be using. But from my standpoint, I think if you're a Dynamics customer, you've got it, it's there, and it's available for you to utilize. If you've got Pro, then we have a charge per user per month. And if you're a Salesforce customer or you have a division that's using Salesforce, they can also take advantage of Viva Sales. And again, we have a per user per month cost for that at $40. So I think it's a great opportunity for everybody to kind of get started and start to help engage those sellers and start to see some real benefits. I do have a call to action slide for everyone. And I think I talked a little bit about this already. Hopefully this kind of piqued your interest as to what Viva Sales has to offer. Look, my overwhelming feedback is really, guys, just go and download and install it. We've got some great documentation to walk you through that. There's an aka.ms link you can see on here, which takes you to kind of like our Viva Sales updates community. So every time we post new updates, we put them there. There's a community forum for feedback. We're going to be posting more and more videos. There's actually quite a lot out there already. Speak to your Microsoft representative if you've got one, if you want some further data as well. And of course, there's the Viva Sales website that gives you a ton of information on this. But for me, just get started. I think download and install, get your users engaged, get that feedback going, and then keep connected to us so that you can see all the latest and greatest scenarios that Iggy's building and getting that into the product. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully that gave you a really good flavor for the value of Viva Sales and how we're evolving the solution and the product. I know there's a live Q&A where we're happy to take further questions, but I just want to say on behalf of Iggy and I, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a good rest of conference. Thank you very much.